Episode 552, part two of the Orange Pill Investor. My new laptop that I had to send back to get repaired for some overheating issues is not doing any better. So, giant pain in the ass. Um, I I think I think I ended up talking for like another fucking 10 minutes before I noticed that the stream disconnected. So that is the definition of impotence, is just talking out to the void and not even realizing you are not talking to anyone. So that was fucking fun. Um, anyway, I think the main. I'll probably try to do just the Cliff Notes version now, because I don't even remember what the hell I was saying. What's up, Kevin? Um, yeah, it's sad that my 5-year-old laptop that I got rid of because it could barely render the virtual background uh, did me just fine while this computer was at the shop, and it's no better than when I sent it in. Um, but the main thing that I kind of wanted to talk about is that the Fed has a mandate to keep unemployment low and prices stable, and it's absolutely impossible. They cannot do this. It cannot be done, and the the levers and the buttons that they press don't necessarily do what they wanted to do. There's always unintended consequences, and the the analogy that I kind of have for this is like my best friend from the Navy is over 6 feet tall. His wife's like 5'10". I'm 5'6". My wife is 4'11". Like, our kids are not the same size. This is obvious. But if the Federal Reserve was in charge of mandating, you know, average heights, they would average the two expectations for our kids and put us on the same like nutrition plan. And if my kids had to drink as much milk as his frickin' kids, they would might be average height, but they would be like fat diabetics. And if if everybody was mandated the same amount of nutrition and his kids tried to survive on what my kids could survive on, they'd like be malnutritioned, and freaking CPS would come and take their kids away. And so I think like, babies are free market absolutists, right? They cry, you feed them, you don't check with the central planners at the Federal Reserve whether to print milk or not, right? Mom has no choice. She's got to whip out the means of production and provide liquidity. And so, uh, just everything that the central banking has done in the last 100 years, World War I would not have been possible without them funding it. Uh, the English citizens actually only funded like a third of the war bonds. So there wasn't enough sentiment to go to war. Um, and if we didn't have World War I, we wouldn't have World War II. And we probably wouldn't be sitting in the mess of all these wars that we're dealing with now. So, monetary debasement has been the root of all evil since the beginning of human history. And the Federal Reserve is the mother asshole from which all socialism springs. Like, we had to create an entire discipline of fake Keynesian economics just to justify the Fed's existence. And so I don't really give a shit what their mandate is. They cannot accomplish it. If they try to print to lower unemployment, but the minimum wage goes up, well, then unemployment is going to go up, because a business that's barely hanging on has to fire half of its employees when the fight for 15 people get their way, or the fight for 20 people, the fight for 25. We might as well fight for fucking $500 an hour and just fire everybody, and we'll have computer kiosks in every single business that you ever go to, and AI chat assistants, and we'll just never have customer service from another human being for as long as we live, which is probably the future. But a lot of people think that socialism and communism fails because of incentives, right? It's laziness. Conservatives think meritocracy works, which to a certain extent it does. But the reason why socialism and communism fails is because they can't solve the economic calculation problem. And you can find Seyfuddin Ammus's uh, lectures on principles of economics. That book of his is actually on my TBR, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. But he does a few choice lectures, which he talks about the economic calculation problem. So everything that the Fed does is a market distortion. It interferes with the free market signals. And so central planning fails because it simply cannot, you cannot just decree by fiat how much food to grow, right? The number of people will determine how much food needs to be grown, how many cars and what types of cars. And, all of those things only the free market can figure out because you have an infinite number of people receiving every single free market signal and acting based on self-interest, whether to, when and how to provide value. And, central planners simply can't do it. And, like war is always a centralizing force. And so it just kind of seems natural that, that the Federal Reserve and central banking in general is responsible for funding and extending all of the wars, at least of my lifetime and of modern history. But monetary debasement goes back as as far as human recorded history, as far as I can tell. So it's always been the source of all evil. So is the love of money the source of all evil, or is the debasement of money the source of all evil? I would go with the latter. No promises, man. Ranger says, please let this be in an intelligent channel. Most on live right now are blowing smoke. Um, yeah, if you're not a radical libertarian, you're probably not gonna have a good time around these parts. Um, but yeah, so you can check out Seyfuddin Ammus's economics lectures, and while you're at it, you might as well check out Frederick Bastiat's That Which Is Seen and That Which Is Unseen, which describes how there are a lot of unintended consequences that these Keynesians and central planners can't predict. So the famous example is, the Keynesians would say that breaking a window stimulates the economy because now the window makers have more work to do. So you've added to GDP, but that's the part which is seen, and the part which is unseen is that now that the homeowner has less disposable income, and now he can't afford a pair of shoes, for example, and so the homeowner is deprived of pleasure, and the shoemaker is deprived of selling a product. So all of the Keynesian um, bullshit is basically all just propaganda. Um, and while you're at it, you might as well take a read of Bastiat's essay called "The Law." And there's an important concept in there that justice is not a positive concept that you can enforce, right? If somebody's murdered, you can't just like restore their life, which that would be justice. So the true way of looking at justice is it's the absence of injustice. And since everything that the Federal Reserve debases money and creates economic injustice, their entire existence uh, is, uh, is bad for society. Um, but what is this about? Right? So, will Trump get his way? Probably. But the only way for that to happen and for the Fed to save face and justify with going along with what the president wants without actually appearing to cave. The only way that they can save face is for us to have some kind of economic collapse that they can use to justify faster and larger injections of liquidity. My guess, and this is just all conjecture, is they'll probably let the silver price of silver cause a short squeeze and maybe some bank liquidations, and they'll use that as a rationalization for injecting liquidity, lowering rates, printing money faster, without actually saying, "Oh yeah, we're capitulating to Trump." So that would be a way for Trump to get his way, but also have the Fed be able to maintain the illusion that they're not an extension of the government, and basically just colluding against all of us. So, explain money versus currency and derivatives. So, it I can't tell if you're trying to test me or if you actually want to know, but I would probably need a little bit more context. I'm not sure what you're asking. All right. So, we will come back to the chat if there's some updates, but my little rant and tangent I think is complete. I probably only remembered to say about half the shit that I said before my frickin' stream got cut off, and I can kind of feel the clock ticking now. So I got to keep pushing forward before I get fucking disconnected again. And yeah, good times. All right, so price of strategy was moving up. It looked like my covered calls were going to get wrecked, and so I generally try not to panic roll. The price is coming back down a little bit, so at current prices, it'll cost me about $500 per contract to roll. Got paid about 230, so my break even is actually closer to 175 as a break even. So this isn't the end of the world. So I'll probably just keep rolling these out weekly and trying to chip away at my margin usage, which is kind of like two steps forward, one step back. Yeah, plenty of time left on the 45 DTEs. They're down to 36 DTE. And so, yeah, no reason to like roll those early. Just set up the cash secured put. It'll be 2 or 3 weeks before I need to move on this one. And of course, considering that the amount of money printing that should take place this year, I'm basically bullish on everything. So I did start stacking some attack the tail type positions. And this one is like, these cash secured puts are almost ready to roll. Poor man's covered calls. I'll probably wait till the last minute to roll these as well. And only have about 30 days left on this long call before I start getting nervous and don't like having those on any longer. This poor man's covered call might be the only one that I have on that's even like above water. So that's nice. And this one has been around for quite some time, and I'll be kind of like threading the needle, trying not to have my short call strike blown out. So I'll probably be watching this for a couple of weeks. Yeah, it sounded like you're familiar. Um, so if I think I understand your question, as a Bitcoiner, I'm gonna call I'm gonna call Bitcoin the only real money. Uh, Gold and silver have been the best forms of money in human history for thousands of years, but since they're not, fixed supply, they're also susceptible to manipulation, and they'll probably do well in 2026 also. And then so currency and derivatives. as far as I can tell, in the future, 50 years from now, we'll be using Bitcoin routinely as a currency. So money can also be currency, but currency doesn't necessarily have to be money. I would say the majority of all the currencies in the world are just fiat decrees. The United States says that the dollar is currency, and so it is. And they have the monopoly of force, and we all have to kind of get along to go along. And every country's got their version of it. Um, but that's just allows for manipulation and control and debasement, money printing, which is, in my opinion, just a tax that nobody gets to vote for. Um, but let me know if that's where you were headed, or if you meant something completely different. All right, the IRA, Iran strikes were breached. Again, plenty of time left, another week or two before I really will start feeling the pressure to try to roll these. Teslas are at break even. So another week or two might be ready to roll that one. Strategy only been on for 1 day. Now, I saw that their announcement to join them for the earnings call, and I can't remember if this earnings date is accurate or not. I generally try not to hold covered calls over earnings in case something amazing happens. But for the most part, nobody really gives a shit about Strategy's earnings calls because we know how much Bitcoin they have. We know how many shares they own. So it's pretty easy. Like everybody knows what Strategy's MNAV is. There's no surprises. It's not like a regular TradFi company where you don't know how many cars Tesla's going to produce, and maybe they meet, maybe they beat, maybe they miss. Everybody already knows what Strategy's EPS is going to be, what their Bitcoin per share is going to be, and there could be a couple of surprises between now and then. Like they could have a bunch of Bitcoin, big Bitcoin buys, like $1 billion a week or something. That, but that's not really going to be like anything that we learn on the earnings call. They could announce, they had the 21-21 plan and then went to 42-42. Are they going to announce like an 84-84 plan? Maybe something like that could cause some excitement in the market. But yeah, I'll have to consider taking these off in 2 or 3 weeks and then just put them right back on after earnings. I've been doing this for like a year and a half and it's never worked. um, so maybe it's just a waste of my time. But sitting out on the covered call side 4 days out of what 250 trading days or whatever the hell it is not that serious. So could just be superstition on my part at this point. But I'm just gonna keep. Maybe I'll just keep doing it till it works. Till it accidentally works once. Same deal here. Sold these cover calls for 5. Price is going in the other direction. So I guess these poor men's cover calls are not doing too bad either. Bought the longs for 66. There were 78, which kind of shows you that that this was constructed well. In that if my short call gets wrecked, the value of the long call will compensate for it. All right, this is my spending account. I'm basically using Cypher options to fund the premium collection and then using the premium collected to buy long positions in Strategy and Tesla. So the forecast secured puts that I have on are basically, have only been on for 2 days, so there's not really anything to do here. And then, this is over a year out. These are over a year out, so there's nothing to do here but just sit and wait. Like, as I as I stack some dry powder, I can take some more positions. But that 2,700 or whatever of supposed buying power is not really true. But because Tasty Trade is not really counting the majority of this like it does in an IRA, I'm technically using margin without actually having to pay margin. But you do have to keep in the back of your mind, like, okay, if Cypher did drop below 16, I could end up with a margin call. So you still have to trade responsibly, even if the algorithm is not warning you. And then with some of the extra buying power, I was able to even like buy some SATA at 93 as they're trying to push it back up to par so that they can ATM it. And if I end up holding this for, through their ex-dividend date, which I think is I think it's the 5th. I'm sorry, the first. I think they pay out on anyway. I could have Stretch and SATA backwards. One pays on the 1st, the other one pays on the 15th. I really don't pay too much attention to the ex-dividend date, which Tasty Trade unfortunately isn't even listing. I just use this as dry powder for the most part. And if I hold over the dividend period, great. If not, it's really not my main focus. All right, the 5K account that I trade on Robinhood. The Cypher covered calls were getting wrecked. It's kind of back down under 18, I believe. Oh, so it's back up over 18. A little bit earlier today, it was like 1780, I think. Oh, damn, it was all the way down to 17. So again, no reason for me to like roll super early. There's, 50 cents of extrinsic value here that I can collect if I just do nothing. And I don't want to pay for that to roll early. So I'll roll these on Friday as per usual. The CLSK put that I sold because I had $1,100 in buying power, and this just, I didn't pick the $11 strike because it was better than the 10 or better than the 12. It was literally the strike that I could afford. I don't really think that there's any kind of theoretical advantage over any of the deltas over any of the other ones. They're all priced, I think, accurately. But it's getting close to being ready to roll. Anything under like 48 would be the sweet spot. So I'll hang on to this one a little bit longer. We'll see what happens. All of my Tesla put credit spreads are getting kind of wrecked. They're really cutting it close. So bullish on Tesla in the long term, but anything can happen from week to week or month to month. I had rolled out the Cypher cash secured put and the Wolf cash secured put. These are the ones that I copy traded with my brother-in-law offline. And everything has stayed above like our strikes to the point where over the past 3 months, we've never been assigned even once, which I think was kind of good for him as a new kind of nervous trader to have him book a series of wins. But we can't even move on to step 2 of the wheel if we don't get wrecked on our cash secured put strikes. Everything else is kind of just long-term stuff. I don't really need to take a look at right now. Buying power is probably under $200. Yeah, about 150. So nothing really to do here. I suppose I could add another share of a preferred just for dry powder storage, but $150 is not that serious. Have to kind of keep an eye on ASST. If it, once the reverse stock split kicks in, I'll only have 10 shares, so I won't be able to sell covered calls against this position. So maybe I'll just let it be a speculative thing and just let my shares sit there. I generally try not to bag hold on any position that I can't sell premium against. But we'll see. We'll see what the liquidity and the premiums look like, and may start trading them in the tastytrade account. But on an account this size, it's going to be very difficult to trade stocks that are $20 a share. you know, that would be like 33% of the portfolio just in Strive. Not really going to be able to diversify a whole lot in an account this size, but we'll see. I suppose I could do a poor man's covered call if the liquidity on the options are still pretty good. Their options have a ton of liquidity now. But once the price is higher, I don't know. There may be some unit bias that priced some people out of the market who were more than happy to stack, something that costs $1, but would be less appealing at $20 a share. But at the same time, there will be people who will trade it at $20 a share because they just screen out all stocks under $5. I tend to screen out most stocks under 10 because it's hard to squeeze premium out of a stock under $10 a share, especially if it drops to 5, which can happen with all of these Bitcoin derivatives. All right, whole lot of nothing, just ranting and raving, and then taking a look at the positions and keeping it moving. All right, appreciate you for tuning in. If you tuned in for the first half of my rant and the second, you get bonus points.